Hey guys, welcome back. In this video we're going to do a quick review of the Deutz Fahr 1200. So this is the last video we're going to make just before it goes off to the big, I suppose, combine graveyard in the sky. Quite an old machine. So this is a 1964 machine, and you're just going to have a quick look around. Okay, so let's climb up the ladder. And the difference between the 1200 and 1202 was just basically a different cab. So we climb in. We've since taken the seat because that's going to go into the Leyland, and have an actual sprung seat. But yeah, so this is where I basically served my apprenticeship of learning how to drive combines. So it's kind of very basic in here. Obviously, like it's an old combine. It's going off to a scrapyard, but just before it goes, we'll do this video. So this lever here is basically your throttle, so that's all the way off, half revs, full revs, because combines don't really work like a car that you'd vary the revs. It's basically to run the thrashing machine you need full horsepower, so that's full revs, and when you come up to the headland to discharge to the grain tank, you'd probably knock it back into half revs, or if you're doing some sort of maintenance or just letting the engine cool down, you'd go back to half revs before you turn it off. So to start the combine, how do you start a combine? So, okay, so say if theoretically we were to start this combine, so how would we start it? Well, this lever here would be over here in the off position, so we'd move it back into half revs, our starting position. Then we'd get our key and we'd flip this up. We'd push our key all the way in. That would turn on all the warning lights, so you knew that the ignition is actually on. And then to actually start the engine, or to crank the engine over, put this lever here up. So yeah, many a time you'd pull this up and you hear the engine just cranking, and then suddenly it'd all spin up to life. Obviously you'd have to be in neutral as well. So yeah, so by the way, you're in neutral, so it is a manual gearbox. So you have a clutch and two brake pedals. So this is the left wheel and the right wheel. So to put it into gear, yeah, nothing's gonna move. So you'd put your foot on the clutch and up and over here to the first position. That's first gear, second gear, third gear. So yeah, first gear and third and second gear was a bit weird. So it's a H pattern, but first and second is on top of each other. So you'd, instead of moving all the way across here, you'd actually pull it underneath you. And third is over here, and reverse was back there. But all the time you'd be in first and reverse. So like if you got into like difficulty, or there was the crop was lodged in front of you, you'd be first and reverse anyway. So it kind of made sense to have those two at opposite each other. So along with having, now you'd pull your, when you're ready to start cutting or moving, you'd probably go up into full revs. So you want to control the actual engine speed of how fast your vehicle is moving, or your combine's moving forward and backwards. So say if you had that in first gear, now you let off the clutch and you're moving, but you want to go faster, but you want to like vary the revs like an accelerator. So you move this pedal lever here, which is called a Variator, and you would watch this one here. So normally you'd be moving at 2, and the more you push this lever forward, this number here would increase all the way up to 10. Obviously when you get 10 you should be changing gear. And to change gear, the sequence that I used to do was get all the way up to probably about 8 or 10, then pull that as fast as you can. Hold the clutch in so the combine's still moving forward, you know, it's freewheeling. You're trying to drop your variator, so you're trying to drop these numbers back down to here. Reach over here, get into, from first gear say into second gear, or you might be in second gear moving up third gear if you had to get from one side of the field to the other for some reason. Maybe your tank is full or there was some sort of problem. And yeah, then you'd be driving away. So now you'd be second gear with low variator on the revs, and then you'd push that again. So often I would use this pedal here with just my knee, and the other two here I'd be controlling. So these pedals here, or levers I should call them, I would probably jump back. If everything wasn't frozen, it would actually jump back to being a straight line. You can kind of see it there. So this one here was to raise and lower the actual or the header, or basically the cutting head. So how close or far away do you want the corn cut, or how much stubble do you want left underneath the combine? That's what that would control. And this one here is if you had some sort of problem, you had to fix something, you normally pull or lower the reel, or if you had a very tall crop, you might just raise up the reel as well. But a lot of the time, you're literally just flicking it like that. You're not like, you know, doing huge big changes. So a lot of the time I'd be like, okay, slow down, lower the head, lower the reel, or vice versa. You'd be moving either of them up, and you'd be moving your knee in there, holding that because you're accelerating or decelerating. Definitely after this you would not be fat, because like it's a full workout. You're doing your gearbox forward speed, you're doing your variator forward speed, so that's like first gear, and inside first gear you have 10 stages. That's basically the easiest way of describing it. Yeah, you have these two here moving up and down, plus you're actually watching everything. So there would be a full header, or the head of the combine, the front of the combine, sitting here, and you're gobbling up the corn as you're moving, and you're watching everything. Also, the engine and the shakers is behind you, so there's a lot of revs, because you're basically on a full rev, don't forget. The whole combine's actually shaking, so you're kind of doing this, but it's a sequence of shakes. So like the shakes never like are violent. You just know that every half second you're either moving forward or backwards. There's this constant little hum, and you just kind of get used to it after a while, and you don't even notice it. Now the big thing is, how do you turn on the shake, or how do you make the combine so you're probably at half revs. We'll turn it back to half revs, say. Now we want to start the actual thrashing machine, which is the part of the combine that's behind us. So these levers here, so you'd pull this one here all the way up to here. That's ready to go. Now you want to connect the front of the combine, which is the bit that kind of eats it off the ground, which is the reel and the header and all the augers and the knife. And this would be this one here, and you pull both of them up. So again, yeah. There we go. Okay, so this is obviously the header at the front. This is the thrashing at the back. So yeah, that's the thrashing at the back, and this is the header at the front. Notice that one is longer than the other. So both levers be up here, and if something went wrong or you wanted to stop just the header, because you don't want to ever turn off the thrasher behind you. You want to leave that thrashing, so as stuff is coming in, you want to keep it moving. You want to maybe stop the thing at the front though, and let the stuff at the back kind of pass its way through. So that's why that lever is slightly longer, because that's usually the one that'll be up here, and you grab it and just flick it down. And they are kind of sprung loaded as well, so as soon as you get a little beyond top dead center, they would naturally just fall anyway. So now we have the machine running. You can have a look there, that's the tank at the back. So that tank now would be, say, full of grain. And as you're driving, how would you know that it's full of grain? Well, obviously one, get up here, have a look in. And the other one is there's little inspection holes. So when we were kids, we used to love looking into these. And yeah, that's a crack there, because I think one of us actually broke it one day. And but yeah, you pull it up and you could have a look in while you're driving. So you can basically be sitting about here, and you just quick look across, check in. Obviously it's frosted over now, but and you can actually flick this up and have a full view inside, because there would be a lid actually on top of here as well. Sometimes we ran with the lids open, sometimes we ran with the lids closed. It didn't really make any difference. So now we have the tank full, and we want to discharge the tank. So that was this lever here. Oh, this one's kind of still free, but yeah, we'd pull that all the way up, and there'd be a chute just out here, and obviously there'd be a trailer underneath. You wouldn't just drop it onto the ground, and that would discharge just the grain, and the straw is passing behind us. So anyone that's ever driven a 1200 or 1202 or any of these generations, the one noise that I can absolutely remember without even moving it is this. It's a click, that little snap. So what does this do? So there's a big drum, which is basically like a big tube underneath us, literally right underneath the cab here, or a little bit just behind us, back behind underneath the cab, and it's a big drum that's moving very quickly, and there's another, say, like concave bar behind it, and the gap between the two of them is actually what separates the corn from the straw, and you have to keep everything lubricated. So every so often, that's why there's a can here, you throw a little drop of oil in there you could actually set how fast or slow the oil would move into the, I think it was basically a big bearing, and you had to keep the bearings lubricated. That was probably the most vital piece, because if that ever went dry and you started cutting corn without it, basically you're pulling the whole combine apart to change the bearings that you should have just oiled. Now these ones here, these were to set the front and the back of the concave. So the concave sits like that, and there's a drum, say, in front of me, and as I vary it, I can actually vary the bottom of it or the top of it. That's what these two did. So you can actually twist them. I don't think they really twist them. You can see the numbers there though. So yeah, this is a big thing. You just switch them, and you switch back to this one, and you obviously that be stay closed. I remember as a kid, I'd sit here and hated this because it had always hit me in the back. So I was only like 10, maybe 8 or 10. You'd sit here, and yeah, you'd have to stand up while we're discharging, but the rest of the time you could sit down and you could just watch the combine working away. That's really it. Like, there wasn't really a whole lot to the combines. Again, there was a speedo there to show how fast the engine itself was actually running. So the engine would stay constant, but you could vary your speed here. And again, it was just basic warnings of how full the tank was. Were the lights on? Did you have was the battery charging, and oil pressure? Like, there was nothing really overly complicated about them. I think that one there was the handbrake as well, or that was some sort of extra warning. I can't remember what it was. Oh yeah, and we had the horn on the side. So yeah, so a lot of the time I did actually drive with my knee. So if you were driving, see, a lot of time you have one hand here, and if you wanted to, say, tell someone come over to you, or you want to tell the man in the trailer, right, get the tractor trailer up here, I want to discharge, or something happened, you want to get someone's attention, you could actually hit it with the side, or you just push in by hand, like. But you could also hit it with the side of your knee and beep the horn while you're driving. Yeah, there's a wiper, a green thing to stop the sun coming in. Sun still came in anyway, and the fans, which I don't think ever worked, or usually worked for the first day and then they broke. There's a lot of sound deadening in the roof, so it is quite thick stuff. And that was literally, I think, either to keep the heat in the cab so you sweated more, or just try and drown out some of the extra sound that was there. This here was some sort of, it never worked when I owned the combine, but it was some sort of air conditioning unit. That's the conditioner there at the back. It would sit on the roof, but to get into the shed, we had quite a low shed, and it was the only piece that would hit off the roof, so we took it off. But yeah, I think you had a big bucket of water here, and it was some sort of water cooler. Again, these are air-cooled engines, so there's no heaters on them, there's no coolers on them. So there's kind of like these weird aftermarket things to cool the cab. Okay, let's have a look around outside. There's a cool sticker showing you all the different parts of the engine. Again, all these extra buttons, probably people are wondering what they did. I think that's your indicators, that one there, and these are just extra lights that are around the place. So if you wanted a light inside the tank to turn on, you'd turn this one on. There might be an extra ones at the back of the combine, or maybe ones at the front that you just drive with, that if you wanted extra lights. I think that was a 12 volt cigarette lighter, or 12 volt outlet, not really a cigarette lighter, and I think that was for turn on your side lights and then main lights or something like that. It was something to do with extra lights anyway. But that's basically the layout of the combine. Again, like, not overly complicated, very, very simple, but this machine is from 1974. So that's what 1974 technology is for. This here you do actually use while you're driving. So when we lower up and raise the header here at the front, we want to know how low is it or how high is it, because sometimes you don't have a very good reference. So this here is a pointer, and as you would drop the head or raise the head, it too would move up and down. So it's connected to the header, and it would give you a rough idea of how high and how low you are. So you'd kind of like to know. On this one here, it isn't marked. You'd probably just put stickers on. I think that's what the different, yeah, that's what the different bits of tape was for. But on the newer ones, you obviously have it's written on like 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So then if you are at 0, you know, like the header's all the way on the ground, or gone below below the header of the level of the ground, and then you could increase or decrease it. So like it was a reference of how high or how low to put it. And in my previous video driving a silage harvester for the first time, it had the same idea, that it was just a gauge, but the gauge was from I think 1 to 5, and you just had to keep it within a certain number. That meant that the header was actually sitting on the ground at the right height. So same thing, little light there. That's probably what one of the switches actually do. Turns on the little light here. Okay, let's have another look. Okay, so I got this to move. So that'd be the door closed. And I always remember this, you used to flick this up. See, the handle would also move on the outside, so you could open from the inside or the outside. So yeah, I remember a lot of times when I was driving, you just reach over here and pull the whole door closed, and it would actually close all the way. You had to close it all the way or open it all the way, because if you didn't, the door would constantly move while you're driving. So yeah, you used to close it all the way, and yeah. It's weird, like different memories that come back to you. Like I don't really remember a huge amount of driving this combine. I just remember it was very dusty, very hot. Trying to probably block out and not remember it, but yeah, a lot of things do come back to you over time. That's really cool. Okay, let's open the door and have a look around. So in case you forget what combine you're driving, it has a big giant fire on the side of it. That's the discharge pipe for the when you have the tank full of grain, so they would pull out here to about here. And yeah, I remember, okay, so like I used to drive this combine on my own. Like I wouldn't have a lot of people helping me, and I think I must have been, I don't know, 16, 17, maybe about that age group. So yeah, you reach over, so that's where the ladder stops, that's the tire. You stand on the tire, grab the handle, and you pull it so far, and you actually pull, let go, and grab the other handle. So this is on a spring, there's a spring underneath this, so it is kind of a bit of giving it. So you'd actually pull it, and when you get enough, as far up as you could pull with this handle, you let go and you quickly grab the other one. And with the momentum, you might have to take 2 or 3 goes, and then you'd get the momentum going, and then you suddenly pull all the way around, and you, as hard and as fast as you can, you slam it into there. And sometimes I'd only get it maybe up to here, and you have to do the sequence again, let it off and pull around and slam it home. Once it gets in there, you know that it's okay, and you just leave it then for the whole day, just engaged. So then every time you go around, you could just pull the handle when you're underneath the trailer and discharge the grain. Okay, so we'll just give the door one final close. Bye combine. That's it now, permanently closed. So that's the door handle. Okay. Okay, so coming down the ladder, there's the tire. This is the concave that I was talking about. So this is the drum. It's turning at a very high speed. I can't remember what the speed is. But that's the concave there, and you could vary the front or the back. So the front, this was straw's coming in this way, not this way, and the drum is turning the same way, so it's encouraging the straw and the grain to move this way. So the first two, these are raspbars, but these go against the raspbars, and usually the first tree is where the majority of the grain is going to come out through, and it takes a long time. For any more grain, it takes a while for it to filter through here, but the majority is going to fall out at this bit, because it's ripe, it's ready to fall out. And again, if you had a wet crop or dry crop or not as ripe crop, whatever, you might vary these to kind of get some variation to get the grain moving. So the grain would then fall through here. Well, it would actually come through the sieves or the concave here and move off down this way. This piece here is now shaking like this, and everything is kind of angled to keep it moving that way, so that it's kind of like stepped, like slates on a roof, and it's shaking like this to encourage it all. So all of these drums, everything is here is encouraging the grain to move this way, and we're going to separate out the grain from the chaff. So that's basically what the combine is doing now. So once you have the grain out, that's all that matters. So where does the straw then go? So the straw goes up this way and gets sent way off up here into the walkers. The walkers are doing the same thing, they're shaking as well, so there might be a little bit of grain in with the straw that just managed to make its way through, and they're angled at quite a severe angle that the straw has to keep going up, but the grain can fall through a little sieve and come back down, and it'll land here again, and then it'll continue on. So the big thing is controlling wind speed. So this is what this here does, and you can, obviously the belts are gone off it. I don't think that's going to move either. So this is a drum, and it spins at a really high speed, and it's basically pushing air in, and the air is being pushed in at a point where the grain is heavy enough that it won't fly off with the wind, but the wind is powerful enough that everything else apart from the grain is going to lift. So it's been sieved by air basically. So all the chaff and all the dirt and all the weeds is hopefully going to go out the back of the combine, but the wind isn't strong enough to push the grain out. But it's to find that balance. That's the big thing for that. This here is a way of controlling wind speed. So there's a cable at the very back. It follows it here. This is a variable pulley, so the pulley can expand and contract, and by changing where it sits inside this variable pulley, you can change the different speed at which wind speed works. Grease points everywhere. So first thing in the morning, grease everything. There's grease points usually all over the combine, and then at dinner time you do the same thing again, so probably around 3 o'clock. And if you're cutting into the evening or the dew didn't come in, you'd probably you'd grease again probably around 6 or maybe 7 o'clock. And then again first thing in the morning you'd do the whole thing again, because the more grease there is, it's not going to break, but if a bearing went dry, you're going to be taking half the combine apart to fix something simple. There's different levels in the combine. So this one level, say, across this way, and if we follow it around, here we go. So here we are at the back of the combine, and just to kind of give an idea of, there's 3 levels. So this is one level here, there's another level underneath there, and this is another level up here. So from the concave at the back, we're going to follow the straw route. So it's going to end up in the walkers. So these walkers are working on a crankshaft. So there's the crankshaft, you can see it's twisty and bendy. And combines are classified as how many walkers they have. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is a 5 walker combine. So the straw is going to come all the way up here, and literally that's what they are doing. They're working opposite each other. So this one takes a step, this one takes a step, and one taking a step forward and backwards, forwards and backwards. And there's little claws, there are little spikes. So the straw can never walk backwards down, it can only walk forwards up. And the idea is, you can see it there, there are little holes. So any grain is going to fall through the hole and fall all the way back down this to the very bottom, where the straw can't do that. So it has to come out and down onto the ground. So now we have the returns from up here, and we have the main crop of corn coming in here. It's going to march basically the same thing as the walkers do. It's going to be shook or marched up this way. These can open and close, and there's air being pushed in, so there's a cushion of air underneath all of this, and you have enough air to blow out all the trash, but not enough air to blow out all the grain, or hopefully that's what you're aiming for. So you have to kind of, it is a bit of hit and miss and guessing of how much you want, but there are normally sensors across here, and you can actually have how much grain is actually pinging off the sensors, and then you can know if you need to adjust anything. So these are lying flat now at the moment, but you can see them there. It's called a frog at the back, so you can actually adjust them open and close more. And if you open them more, obviously more grain is going to fall in, and if you close them, less grain is going to fall in, but also how much air has been pushed out as well. So you have a quite a tight angle. The air has been ejected quite quickly this way, where you have them open more, it's more of a slow air that you want. So you want the grains to fall through basically a trap for all them purposes, and the grain's got to fall through the trap, but the dirt and the debris hopefully is light enough that it stays on the cushion of air and get pushed out the back. Basically anything that gets pushed out the back is waste anyway. So you can see there's little lines everywhere, and these crocodile teeth the whole way up. So the whole idea is to get everything pointing this way. So again, you have all these little claws across here. These are all like little crocodile teeth. And you want everything pointing this way. So everything is at 90 degrees to all of these gaps. Because obviously if it was at parallel this way, it would just fall, the whole piece of straw that could be quite long could fall through the gap. So you want it all pointing this way. Again, everything is aimed that it comes this way. Anything that reaches here, especially corn, it's hopefully going to come out so far and then fall back into the gap. This is the same here. We're hopefully to get any straw to keep going, but any grains can fall through the gap. Now we're going to have a look at what's underneath this bit. So now we drop this down. Now there's two levels down here. So first level is this red one, and then the second level is where all this debris here is. So these are the sieves, and for different crops you'll have different sieves. So if you have a really big grain, you'll have a big hole, and for smaller crops you'll have a smaller hole. So I don't know what was that, probably a barley's one, or maybe an oat, maybe a wheat hole, and then like maybe for oats you'll have a bigger hole because it's quite a long seed. So anyway, once the grains fall through that, only grain can usually get through this, so then that's it there. There's actually a little, it's very hard to actually see it, but there's basically a plate, and it lets only the grain go the whole way down, and there's a discharge where it'll be sent to the tank. But what happens the bit that falls down here? So these are all the grains that would come up this way. So there could be trash, there could be a bit of everything. And it falls down here and it goes around for, it's called secondary or second cleanings, or to be, basically it's a second go at around. So there's a hole just here, and it gets blown back out onto the sieve pan, and it has to do the whole march up again. And most time, by that stage, the grain is either taken out or it's not, and it gets ejected. So there's, you know, there's a few different places where grain can either be like checked or rechecked or re-sieved. So it's a very clever design. So now here we are at the very back. So there's two orders. This is for your second cleanings to be checked again. So they come in here, get blown up, and that's the hole at the side where they get injected back into the combine to be re-sieved. So the grain that goes through the sieve ends up down here. It goes all the way up here and gets brought into the tank, and then the tank, once it's full, is ready for discharge into the trailers. Okay, so we're just climbing up on top of the combine now. So there's the walkers. There should be a cover over this. Okay, so here's the engine. Where's the radiator? This is a Deutz Fahr engine. So Deutz Fahr were known for having air-cooled engines. So this is a 6-cylinder diesel air-cooled engine. There's a fan just in here, so we take the air from here. There's a mesh all the way across, so that's kind of like a pre-filter. Suck the air in. You can see that this is getting actually smaller as it goes this way, so it suck the air in and then force the air through the cylinder heads. If you have a look very carefully, you can see the fins, not these uprights. Here, I'm going a bit closer. You can see the fins just there. So that's where the air would be escaping back out, and obviously when it comes out it's going to pull some of the heat with it, and that's how we cool the head of the engine. So to get the air in to the engine, there's a filter this side, takes it in, there's a dust trap just there, then the actual filter itself. So the first one is like a mesh screen again. It would come in this way and then feed the 6 cylinders. This here is for putting the oil into the engine. And there was a dipstick just here as well. So there's your dipstick, and it goes the whole way around underneath the engine. So obviously you have the engine, and on this side here it takes the power out and feeds the rest of the combine for all the shakers. And this side here is the reservoir for the oil pumps. So obviously to raise and lower the head and do different parts of the combine, it's going to be oil assisted. Okay, there's a little platform to stand on if you want to change the oil filter or to really top up with engine oil, and you check that every morning. So every morning, regardless whatever you're doing, check it, because there's no point cutting with no oil in the sump. This is the discharge. So the grain would come up here, come up to this point here and be discharged into the tank, and Basically, you'd sit there until you have a full tank and you're ready to then discharge into a trailer. And there's an auger desk down here behind all the weeds. Find this V here, and that would send the grain out and out into the spout to be discharged into a trailer. Again, that's where the AC would work. I don't actually even know how it even worked. I'm not really sure whether it ran on gas or what did it do, but some sort of air conditioning anyway. That it never worked. This one here is the Deutz Fahr 1202, and as far as I can figure out, the only difference is quick release here for the engaging and disengaging the header, and you have a door that actually comes out like this, where the other one had a white cab and a sliding door. As far as I can work out, that's the only major differences. So guys, that's just a rundown of the combine. Thanks very much for watching. You can support me at buymeacoffee.com, link in the description below, or just support me directly through PayPal. And so please do subscribe, as it really does help the channel to grow. Now you know everything about how to drive and operate a Deutz Fahr 1200. Thanks for watching, see you next time.